welcome to Deep Side of Entertainment, another episode and another amazing speaker we have for today. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a day that we all wanted to like work on different things, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time to actually join us for the session today. So today we have an interesting speaker, but before that, let me give you all a brief introduction about what this session is all about and what is Deep Side of Entertainment to begin with. So, Deep Side of Entertainment is actually a show that happens every month where we invite different speaker or we discuss on different topics related to the entertainment industry to see what's going behind the scene in the entertainment industry that we don't usually see on screen or on stage kind of thing. So it's a show that explores the many different elements and the hidden things that we often overlook in the entertainment sector. So I'm the host of the show. My name is Abhi. I am 19 years old and I'm the head of publicity of Ascendance. Ascendance is actually the main organizer for today's show, and Ascendance is basically an international youth organization that has helped over 50,000 students from 26 different countries over the last few years. And this show is the aim of the show is to bring in more experience and exposure about the entertainment industry for students who are interested to learn more about how this world works itself. So thank you guys once again for joining. And for today's episode, we actually have a very, very interesting speaker. So, you know how we watch movies and we watch shows, but we don't really look at the music element of it. We see everything on screen, like the visual part of it. But a lot of times, the audio actually plays a lot, like the major role in actually making the movie brings on more emotion. Like back in those days, there were movies with no music. But eventually, when people realized the importance of the music, they actually implemented music in mostly all movies. Some movies I can't even recognize as a music BGM at the back, but I'll be so engrossed with the movie, and the music really plays such a huge role in getting you into the mood and feel. So today we're actually having Jordan. He will be coming in and sharing more about composing music because he is a music composer and is also an audio post engineer as well. So we're so excited to start the session with him. But before we get started, or before we even invite him on screen, I thought, why not? We watch a video that was done by him. So this video is basically the audio. Everything that you hear in in this video is all done by our speaker for today, Jordan. So before we get him on the screen, let's watch this short video of his previous work.
Go to audio. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, but I still did not hear that.
Yay! That's a very, very nice video done by Jordan. Hi, Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us for today on our show, Deep Side of Entertainment.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you about the video just now. Like, how long did it take you to come up with that, even concept, or even like to actually finish editing the entire whole music for it?
Well, so it was commissioned by Auto Trader, the project, and there was a few different cars. So there was a few different composers that they hired on, and the whole point of it was to go there and record different sounds from the car and then turn that into a song. So it was quite a quick turnaround on that one. That's just something, sometimes you don't have that much time to work on something. So I think from the time that all the sounds were recorded until the finished track that you could hear, it was about 3 days, 2.5, 3 days. Um, but yeah, so there wasn't any like samples used. The only sounds that were used were stuff that we recorded from inside the car.
Interesting, interesting. But
Yeah.
how did you come up with the concept of like merging few audios together? Like, what was your inspiration for this video?
So this type of, they call it like an ASMR type of beat, and
Yeah.
it's something that's been done before by lots of other people. Um, but Auto Trader thought it would be a unique idea to kind of promote their cars by just doing it with car sounds. So the idea itself for like using the recorded sounds from the car, that wasn't my idea. That was all Auto Trader and their team. But yeah, choosing which sounds to make and which sounds to record, that was up to each of the different composers that they hired on.
Interesting. Got it, got it. Uh,
Yeah.
Before we get into all the different questions we have prepared for you, I just thought probably would you like to introduce yourself, like to share more about the work that you do and how did you even get started in this industry?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, I'm Jordan, and I've been doing freelancing in the music and sound industry for just about 1 year now. Because I graduated at the end of 2022 from SAE, which is, I forget what it stands for, but it's a university that deals with sound and music. So it's a Bachelor of Arts in Sound Production is what I got at the end of my graduation. That's my degree. And then after that, I had looked around for work in this sector, which mostly is at studios. And I struggled a bit to find a place where I thought I would enjoy the work there, because unfortunately, it's just the nature of a lot of corporate jobs that you get where you really have to start at the bottom, and it could take you quite a long time to get to a point where you actually get to do the fun stuff. Um, and for me, I just didn't feel like I would be satisfied, doing the work that I thought was a bit more boring and working my way up to the point where I'd be able to do the creative stuff myself, because it's normally the senior engineers and the senior music composers that have all the creative input, and then as like if you join on as a junior, you kind of just doing stuff to help them do their jobs. And I kind of wanted to be doing what they were doing from the get-go, so I just thought I'd rather do my own thing and do it freelance from home. But yeah, that's pretty much working with music composition, and then also working with the audio post side, which is doing like the sound effects and all the other sound besides from music that goes into a production. So whether if it's a film or if it's just an advertisement, there's always sound that needs to get done. So yeah, I basically handle all the stuff that goes into advertisements or film in terms of the sound side of things.
That's really nice. But I just thought of asking, like, where did this interest even come from? Like, because music is something so unique and like so different, but at the same time, I think it just comes together with like a lot of passion and love for music kind of thing. I listen to music, but if you ask me to compose music, I would just sit at the side and just watch people do it, because I could never compose
Yeah.
it, or I don't even understand how the concept works. But how did you get, or like how did you got into this music industry, or where did you find your passion for it?
I think I was always just very interested in music when I was young. I think if I had to trace it back to a specific moment, it was probably, I think I was maybe around 10 or 11, and I was in the car driving somewhere, and I would always have my earphones in and listen to music. And there's just something about music where it can make you feel things that you can't really put into words. Um, and it can make you feel sort of emotions, or you start to, like, if you listen to a certain song, you'll kind of paint like a movie in your head of what's going on, and it kind of really just um, works with your imagination really well. And there's just something about listening to music, the way that it can bring about feelings that aren't really feelings you can put into words, and it can like touch you so deeply in a way. um so I just remember experiencing that and kind of becoming aware of that phenomenon for the first time, and then thinking, it'd be really cool to be able to make something that would cause someone else to feel that way. And I think since then I was just interested in learning how to get into making my own music.
That's nice. That's nice. That's very interesting. I like how you mentioned like music touches your heart, and I think that's 100% true. Like music really connects you with like even people. Like I listen to some music from different genre or different language itself, but you can still feel it because it's just music. Like it's no language. It's just music. Kind of thing. I
Yeah.
love that. One of the things I loved about you when you shared during our pre-interview is that I think there's a common misconception when we talk about music. A lot of times when we talk about music, people usually think that, oh, you should be able to like play instruments, like you should be the best person to like play the guitar or like the violin or anything, right? But you mentioned something different, that you don't usually play instrument and you use digital tools to actually compose your music. Share with us more about that, because I think a lot of kids or even us, we think that you need to play instrument in order to get into the musical industry, but I think it's not true anymore. But tell us how, like, how do you work on like music composing, and also like how does it work for you?
So I think what, like, definitely worth mentioning is that if you do play an instrument and you're gonna want to learn how to like compose music, I think doing both at the same time is always going to be your best bet. But it should never be something that prevents you from getting into making music if you don't play an instrument. um, I had like extremely basic piano training. I maybe did it for about a year when I was in school, and I wasn't really enjoying it too much. And then it was only way later, like many years down the line, where I got properly into making music. And there was a part of myself that thought, if I could go back, I would probably tell myself to stick with the piano lessons. But at the same time, it really isn't something that stops you at all, because nowadays there's so much information out there just on YouTube and online. You can teach yourself so much. And I definitely don't think that you need to be an accomplished musician to make good music. And a lot of really well known composers, especially for films, even people as famous as like Hans Zimmer, they don't have formal music training, you know? I'm sure that they could fiddle around on certain instruments, but it's not like they are extremely well versed in a certain instrument and they've gone on to perfect or master that instrument. I think, like with anything, the more time you spend doing something, the better you're going to get at it. So the more time you spend playing piano, the better you'll be at playing piano. But actually composing music for, especially if it's to picture and stuff like that, it's kind of, there's other things involved besides just being able to play the piano well, if you use that as an example. So the more time that you spend actually just making music for pictures or movies or something that you can get your hands on to like practice making music to, the more time you spend doing that, the better you'll get at it. And like you mentioned, there's, when you make music digitally with like an audio workstation on a computer, there's tools in place to help you adhere to like the basic theory laws with music, like staying in key and making stuff that can harmonize well. That's easy to do on the computer. It's not like it does it for you, but it's very, if you want to, you can just do it. You can do it properly. You don't have to make music that doesn't sound like it's harmonizing well or not in key or something like that, because yeah, the tools on the software do help you get around that for sure.
So I guess more practice makes you better at it, and like you can learn how do you match the musics together. And that's very interesting because I thought it's very common for people to think like you really need to know that like the basics of like how to play instruments. But actually, if you really are passionate about music, you can get started anywhere. So it doesn't have to have like a piano at home to like practice, but you can even practice it digitally. That's very nice.
For sure.
My, more, I mean, when you compose music, what will be your go-to instrument that you usually will have most times when you compose music? Like that one instrument that you usually have in your music composing, like your go-to kind of thing.
Definitely just a piano. I think it's just a sound that I'm very used to, and especially if I'm trying to compose something that's a bit like orchestral, then I always like to start with the piano, even if it doesn't feature in like the finished piece of music. It's just to get started with something, because with the piano you can like play chords, and you can design melodies really well, and it's just a very clear sounding instrument. It doesn't have, it's just a very simple instrument, and it sounds very clean. So it's a good way to just immediately start getting creative and get feelings into the music.
That's interesting. Very nice.
Yeah,
I'm a person who likes violin so much because it's very calm or like it's very melodic kind of thing. So
for sure.
that's very interesting. But I can never play any instrument. So piano is the only place that I started a little bit, but I'm like this is too fast for me. But no. But if you could like a lot of movies they have like great instruments and music and they impact you in a certain way, but what would be your top three films or movies that you enjoyed their music at the back, like what would be your favorite ones?
I think that's tricky. I think that definitely in the top three would have to be like, even though it's quite a cliche, I would have to be Interstellar, because I think
Mhm.
all the music by Hans Zimmer is just really good. And then if I had to choose another two, it would probably be, I'm quite into the horror genre of film, and I think that the music in those kind of films does play a very big role. So I would probably, um, there's so many good ones, and I'm not sure which of those should be watched when you're in high school, but I think any horror movie, when you listen to it and it's got the music that's very like dissonant and it's kind of scary sounding, I find that extremely interesting for sure.
That's nice. Have you attempted to like make your own horror music kind of thing before?
Yeah, yeah, I have. I'm trying my best to get into that side of things. And I'm doing the music for a film in the next few months. I'm going to start working on it. And it's like a short, I think it's like a 40 or 50-minute horror film that's being done in the States, but it's a very retro sort of vibe to it, that they're going for like a 70s 80s type of thriller thing. So the music isn't it's like synth music, so it's like, if you think of like the movie Halloween with like Freddy Krueger, that type of music where it's synth music, but it's like scary sounding. It's They're kind of going for that sort of vibe. So yeah,
That's a very interesting answer that I did not expect. Now that you say it, yes, horror movies has one of the best music because as the music is playing, you can feel the goosebumps in your body, and I think it's a very good job by the music director or like the music composer. So
for
that's a
sure.
very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that is very very interesting. If you could bring us through like one of your like projects, like a favorite projects, creative process, would you like share with us? How do you exactly get started? Because I think uh, things like creative industries, like even music, or like coming up with a movie, or even designing it. It all requires you to like think and like really brainstorm and like get into the picture, the mood of the entire whole like project in a way. So how do you like get into the mood of the project? Like what do you do before, and like some of the practices that you take before even you get into like composing the music? Like share with us your creative process, and like how do you exactly like compose music when you get a project?
So I think for because often the stuff that I've done in this my first year of working freelance, the stuff that I've gotten my hands on is kind of short form content. So it'll be advertisements that are maybe max 30 seconds long. So for those kind of things, it's kind of corporate in the way that you prepare for it, because they'll give you a brief with what they want, the client, and then they'll often give you music that because they'll edit the actual advertisement to music, and then they'll say, copy this, but don't copy this, in a way. Like, we want it to sound similar, but we want it to be unique. So for those kind of projects, it's just listening to the reference and then thinking about how you could make it a bit more like tailored specifically towards their brand or what's going on in the picture. So there's not too much preparation that goes on. You kind of just start with it. But with the project that I have coming up, where it's for a film, um, I haven't done anything on such a big scale as this before, where it's like an entire film's music being composed by me. But what I'm planning on doing is, they obviously, I think it's like this with all creative media, where everyone has a reference in mind before you start making something. So even for the director of this film, they obviously have their favorite films that they're trying to draw inspiration from. So it's chatting to the director, seeing which films they are kind of trying to get influenced by and which ones they're trying to take inspiration from. And then I'm just going to go through and watch all of those films and just pay close attention to the music. And I think while listening to the music and watching the films, I would take notes of certain things that I'm noticing, and like picking up on like certain instruments that are being used, and like the timing of when music is playing and when it stops playing, and things like that.
Makes sense, makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting point. When you mention like you take notes, right? You mentioned you take notes of things like when the music starts and stop, like what are the instruments they use, kind of thing. And also like how do you know like what music would match with another one? Like which how do you know which instrument would match with another instrument, kind of thing? Or is it just like go with the flow and explore if it works, kind of thing?
I think there's a lot of experimenting with all music making, for sure. But when it's with something that's because with this thing that I'm going to be working on, it's a very niche sort of genre of music. So it's just like synth music, and it's just in a minor key most of the time. So it sounds a bit scary because of that. So yeah, there's not much to take note of, and there's not many different instruments that you would be using. It's more just yeah, there's not many different instruments. It's all just synthetic sounds. So you'll kind of be scrolling through. I'll be looking for different synths that I can use, and you'll hear some that just have the right vintage quality to it, where you can kind of see it working. And a lot of it when you're starting with a new project, you're just kind of playing the sounds, and you going through a bunch of different sounds, playing them, seeing how they sound, and then you kind of imagine those sounds popping up with the film, and you can decide whether that you think it's going to fit and work well or not. Yeah.
Makes sense. Interesting, interesting. That is very very nice. For the audience who are watching, if you guys have any question, you can drop it in the chat, and we will make sure we'll try to get the questions up for Jordan as well. But next part, I just thought it was very nice talking about the different concepts, or like the different things that actually involve in composing a music, and how you can actually get started. And one of the things that we thought of doing for today's session is that we want to show you how you can get started, the audience can get started as well. So Jordan has like a mini we'll be showing you how you can get started with like a tool that he's using, and like how he actually composes music kind of thing. So Jordan, the stage is all yours for the next part. You can share with us how you exactly compose music, and like show us a mini sample to like how the students who are watching today's shows, they can get started as well.
Okay, for sure. So I'll just share my screen. So this is something that I just started recently. And if you download the free version of FL Studio, because that's the software that I use, you will be a bit more limited in terms of what you are able to choose from in terms of instruments, but it's definitely a good place to start. Because what I've been working on here is an orchestral piece of music. So there's a lot of real instruments being used. So pianos, violins, violas, like cellos, things like that, like your classic orchestra setup where there's brass and there's strings and there's woodwind instruments. And these sort of instruments are a bit pricey for sure. But there are free ones out there for sure. I think that a good place to start would be to get Contact, which is just this is what it looks like. And then once you purchase all of your different instruments, they'll come up here on the left, and you can just choose them and make use of them. But if you have Contact, it's not super expensive to buy. Then you can start to install free instruments into Contact. So it's a bit confusing, but inside the music making software, you have another program, and with this program, you load up your instruments, and that's how you start using them. And yeah, I think if I were to just take you quickly through what's going on with this particular project, it's not looking very neat at the moment because it's very rough, but I can give it a playthrough so you can hear what it's sounding like so far.
It's very nice. It's giving mysterious horror and like
Yeah.
ball dance, I guess. Yeah.
So yeah, you can kind of where I would start with this, where I started with this one was just with the piano. So if you play that on its own, so yeah, for me, I like to start with the piano because then for the rest of the composition, it's kind of just a process of layering. So if I take what's going on here, so at the moment there's just piano and then there's some different strings playing. So if I take you kind of start with the piano and then you just build on top of it with other instruments. So I'll maybe start by putting on some cello. Which adds a little something, and then you could add on some more instruments. Here's some violas. And then lastly, some violins as well. So yeah, it's basically the piano is kind of the main thing that's happening, and then the rest of it is just as you just keep playing it over and over, and as you're listening to it, you just think about where you could add more things. And with this particular software, it's as easy as just, if I mute some of these things, it's as easy as just you just draw it on the different notes. And you're working with, you can set what kind of key you're working in, and then you can see some of the notes. Here's like a piano on the left, and some of the notes are light gray and some of them are dark gray. And that's the program telling you to just use the light gray notes to stay in the right key. And yeah, then you basically just play it, and as you hear stuff, you can just draw in the different notes. And it's just kind of a process of doing that over and over and playing around until you're creating the kind of atmosphere that you want to be creating. And yeah, then with this particular one, there's a lot more room for other instruments to come in as well. So this is just strings and piano, but there's also brass that can be added, trumpets and horns and trombones. And then there's also a bunch of wind instruments. So this is your flutes, things like that. And then, yeah, there's also other percussion things. So something like a piano is a percussion instrument, but then you also get stuff like a celeste and a glockenspiel, which are also percussion instruments. And then, yeah, like I said, there's lots of different types of instruments. So even just with the piano, there's 3 that I use the most often. And they all sound a bit different. So this is like a Cuban style piano, which has a certain sound. And then this is just a felt grand piano. That's how this instrument, it's modeled after a felt piano and has a very different sound. And yeah, it's basically just combining and mixing all those different things until you get it to a place where it's sounding how you want it to sound. And for something like orchestral music, you kind of wanting it to sound as natural as possible. But then with other genres of music, it's you're not trying to make it sound man-made. You're just trying to make it sound good. And that's where my whole point of, you don't need to know how to play an instrument comes in, because you if you just listen to music, you know what sounds good to you and what doesn't sound good to you, and those kind of things are the same for everyone. So it's just practicing and trial and error, and you just keep essentially playing in the program until you get a sound that you think sounds good to you. And then if it sounds good to you, it's probably going to sound good to someone else as well. And yeah, that's basically that.
That's nice. That's very, very nice. Like, thank you so much, Jordan, for the tutorial. I bet the students will be excited to like explore more and see how the uh, software works itself. So, I mean, I'm so
For
sorry.
sure.
Your sharing made my inner child more happy, and I'm like, I should go get the guitar. I saw that
Yeah,
guitar.
yeah,
That's nice. Thank you so much.
of course.
Um, very nice. Like it was very nice how your music actually got us all to feel like a certain way, because that's how the music was supposed to do. And like I love your sharing when you mentioned like if you feel like the music is good for you, then you go with it. Like usually if you like it, people will also like it. I think that applies to like all sorts of like entertainment industry or even creative fields. As much as there's like deadlines for the work and you are meeting clients requirements, yes, but it's also important to make sure that you yourself are enjoying the process of working on it, and you love the
Yeah,
work that you do, so that it will give the same impact to others as well. Look that
for sure.
if you could share like one of your favorite experience working on a certain project and how that made you feel, what would be your one favorite project that uh, that it could be like even the beginning stages or like throughout the entire whole process, like what was your favorite project and why is it so?
I think my favorite project so far was doing the sound for a drinks advert that I did recently. Just because it was very short, so the project didn't drag on for too long. Because I would imagine if you have to work on the same thing for maybe a month or two, you'll start to get a bit sick of listening to it over and over again. So it was two like short ads, 30 seconds each, and for each one I got to make the music and then also do all the sound effects. And it was a proper like flashy drinks ad, so there was lots of cool sound effects to be put in there. And that was quite fun to be able to handle all the sound, because on larger scale projects, like if you take the biggest scale I could think of, like a Hollywood film, for example, everything is so spread out who does what. So, you know, one whole studio, like a whole business, will handle just the voiceovers and the voices, and then the sound effects will be sent to another studio where you've got like 15 to 20 people working on just the sound effects, and then you'll have a whole team of music supervisors that you know communicate with a whole team of music composers. So there's so many people working on the one project to make sure that it all comes together just because of the scale of it. So it's quite fun being able to do all of that just yourself when it's on a smaller scale. So being able to handle all the sound effects and then also all the music is fun, because then you get to make sure that your music fits with the sound effects that you put in nicely and vice versa. And obviously it's something that's not really possible for really big scale projects, but I think you can hear how cohesive it sounds when it's in such a small project, because if it's the same person doing the sound effects and the music, then they're making sure that things are timing together nicely and it flows really nicely. So I think that that was probably one of my favorite projects that I've worked on so far. I think that after I work on this film that's coming up, I think that might be the next number one. But we'll have to see how it goes.
Like it's about to beat the record, but the film was like on progress. Super happy for you, like all the best, and do share with us when the film's out. We will definitely go and check it out and like support you in every way we can.
For
um
sure. Thanks.
Once again, thank you so much, Jordan, for taking the time to like join us. I know it could be a busy day and busy week, a month for you, but thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on the show. This show, in the show, we are aiming to inspire more students to find out what they truly like, and if they have like a teeny tiny bit of like passion into music or even entertainment industry, how they can get started in a way. What would be your closing note to share with the students how they can get started if they are passionate about music composing or even anything about music industry?
I think just definitely just stay curious about it, and just it can seem daunting, but just take it upon yourself to teach yourself. Um, I think all the greats in any field have done a lot of work by themselves, just learning by themselves, and that's kind of all that you have to do. And nowadays, it's so easy to do that. You just jump on Google and just type it in what you're looking for, and it'll come up. You'll find hundreds of videos and hundreds of tutorials on how to do things. So if you are interested in it, then just keep feeding that curiosity. Just research things, watch things, Google things. Yeah. And just teach yourself what you can, for sure.
That's nice. That's nice. Thank you so much. I think one thing we can definitely take away from today's session is that it doesn't you doesn't have to have like certain tools or like skills or even like talent, like born talent kind of thing. But if you have a little bit of interest, you can pursue in any industry that you're passionate about. But be curious, like what you said, and like keep looking for it, like research more, understand about it more, and like keep understand and being curious about what's going to happen next. And I think that's a very, very nice note on that. Thank you so much once again for joining us. And for the audience, if you guys have any question, do let us know as well. We'll be sure to reach it out to Jordan and like answer you guys as soon as we can. But in the show we happens I mean the show continuously happens every month, and we discover new different topics and like we discuss about it. And even in our WhatsApp group, we actually talk a lot about the different topics about the entertainment industry and what actually get us excited about it in itself. Because all of us consume entertainment, and we wanted to talk more about how it actually makes it more interesting, and what are the different things that's actually involved in this industry itself. So if you're watching this and if you want to watch more of our episode, join our WhatsApp group, because we'll be sending the links and everything else about the show in the WhatsApp group. But again, thank you, Jordan, for joining us. And that's the time we have for today. For all the viewers, see you all in our next episode in June. And thank you so much, Jordan, for joining us. Bye.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
See you all in June then. Yeah.